Hey everyone! Recently I was running my Avid CNC, and as I watched it playfully dance back and forth, I was thinking to myself, it's been a long time since I built this thing. I can't believe I've not had to repair or replace anything on it yet. And apparently I jinxed myself, because the next project revealed some problems that were resolved from some routine maintenance and replacement of some known wear and tear parts. In this video, I'm going to show you what alerted me that something may be wrong with my CNC, and then I'll show you just how easy it was to replace some of those worn out parts on my Avid CNC. This is the Madison Creations YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. And what are we working on today? Our CNC machine. And what was wrong with it?
Part of it broke.
It was broken because these old parts got worn out. So going back in time just a little bit, shortly after I found myself staring at my CNC, amazed it was still running after 4 years, I was getting familiar with Vectric's V-Carve inlay tool that is now part of the Aspire version 12. Lucky for me, I thought it'd be a wise idea to do some inlay tests on some scrap pieces before I jumped into my projects. Man, am I glad I did. I set up a simple V-Carve inlay using an image of a wrench and the word tool. After running the male and female pieces, I inspected them closely, and this is what I discovered. If I zoom in just a little bit on these pictures of the male plug, you'll notice lines that are not perfectly straight, lines that are cut into the plug from the 1/8 inch clearance tool where it should not be cut into, and areas that are not properly cleared out at all. Now I do realize most of these imperfections are below the surface of the inlay because this is the male plug. But that does not change the fact that I've obviously got a problem with my cut quality. I thought the first one must have been a fluke. Maybe I had a setting wrong, maybe I messed up when I zeroed the machine. I don't know. So I ran another one and it was the same. Or actually, looking at it now, maybe even a little worse. Knowing Avid CNC usually responds relatively quickly to customer support requests, I fired an email off to them explaining my conundrum. I attached a few pictures, and I figured I'd do some of my own research and troubleshooting while I waited for their response. Following day, I double-checked my belts, the tension on the rack and pinion spring, and all looked good. Then I realized I already had a response from Avid. It read, and I quote,
"Cut quality issues like the ones we see in the images you shared are most often caused by components in the rack and pinion drives that are worn or need adjustment. We typically suggest component replacement every 6 months regarding the pinion gears (drive spindle gear sets), as mentioned in the maintenance guide." Unquote.
What? Just got my reply email from Avid CNC. Evidently I'm supposed to be replacing the drive gears every 6 months. Oopsies. Send me a link to a maintenance guide. There we go. Component replacement. 6 months. Says 20 hours a week. A quick look at the Avid maintenance schedule showed I should lubricate the gear rack, ball screw, and linear rails every 3 or 6 months depending on what lubricant I was using. I had done that once or twice in 4 years or so. Actually, maybe a little more often than that. But most notable to me was the recommendation of, quote, component replacement. It says, like in the email, every 6 months. It's also important to note, Avid CNC is making this recommendation based off an average machine use of 20 hours per week. So 20 hours per week, 4 weeks in a month, multiply that by 6, we're looking at every 480 hours. In my defense, my machine rarely runs 20 hours per week, and there have been some months where it did not even run 20 hours the entire month, or possibly even at all. So I was definitely overdue for the maintenance, but not as overdue as it first appeared when I read this. I'm curious, leave a comment below, how often do you do your routine maintenance on your CNC and what does it consist of? I'm guessing it's something we should probably all be better at. So, moving on. I decided to replace the primary wear and tear parts whether they appeared to need it or not. I figured if I was going to get dirty and the CNC was going to be down for maintenance, I may as well knock it all out in one shot. Avid makes the part replacement easy by offering replacement parts bundles as well as individual parts such as the gear sets. I ended up ordering a Pro CNC machine spare parts bundle. This included 2 linear bearings, 2 drive belts, and 3 drive gear assemblies. I also added 2 drive belts to my order so I'd have a spare belt on hand. So I could replace these components on each of the 3 rack and pinion assemblies. I'll talk later in the video about costs of all these parts. I did not actually replace the linear bearings as they appeared to be fine. I had remembered to routinely grease those, so at least I was on schedule with that. But I thought it'd be a good idea to have them on hand for future repairs. First things first, the rack and pinion assembly must be removed. That is as easy as removing the tension screw and spring and removing the pivot shaft that's holding the assembly to the frame. Once removed, you loosen the cam tensioner, loosen the motor screws, and slippy slide the belt right off. Now my belts did not look too bad, they weren't that worn, but they're 4 years old, so as stated earlier, they all got replaced. Now you see me removing the Legacy Pro Spindle assembly, meaning the old, now discontinued one. You can see the difference with the upgraded 2.0 components. The Legacy was all one piece, so the only way to replace the gear was to replace this entire assembly. The 2.0 upgraded assembly allows you to remove just the gear cartridge from this drive pulley. With this now being 2 pieces, when the time comes, you can replace only the gear cartridge, making it a lower cost repair in the future. Here I'm installing my new 2.0 gear set onto the assembly. And from here you simply follow your initial build instructions, which, you guessed it, are the opposite of the steps that we took to disassemble this thing. With the gear set mounted, you apply a little push and a shove with the cam tensioner. You snug up the motor mounting screws, ensure proper tension is on the belt. Then you snug everything up a little more to include the cam tension screw. And the assembly gets mounted back to the base by attaching it with the pivot shaft and installing the tensioning screw and spring. Now 3 full rotations on the tensioning spring and this thing is complete. And just a quick tip for you, Avid recommends once these gears are contacting to set the proper tension on this spring by turning it 3 full rotations. So before I do that, I just mark it with a Sharpie and count my rotations and I'm in business. You've now replaced the known wear and tear parts on the rack and pinion assembly. 1 down, 2 more to go. The other 2 rack and pinion assemblies are essentially the same as the first, so as you see me replacing those, I'll explain that although I had not replaced these gears in 4 years, they did not seem all too worn. My X-axis gear did show some wear, although it was hard to see in a photo, and I had noticed that even though I did occasionally lubricate that gear rack, I often found what I would describe as metal dust on my gantry from that gear moving along the gear rack. Early on, when I first got my CNC up and running, I asked Avid about this metal gear dust, and they told me this was normal, but mine did seem to be a little excessive and more than I would expect. Spoiler alert, I believe this was the culprit for my cut quality issues, because believe it or not, after this routine maintenance was complete, the cut quality issues all went away. Hey, do me a quick favor, in the comments below, if you have an Avid CNC or if you have a CNC with a rack and pinion similar to this design, let me know if this amount of metal gear dust that I see accumulated on my gantry is normal, abnormal. I just don't really know, but I'm curious. Maybe I had the tension a little too tight on this. So yes, this was a success. I did 2 more V-carve inlay tests and it was clear the CNC was cutting and tracking much more smoothly. You can see here that the inlay was literally flawless. And it may be me overthinking things or just overanalyzing, or maybe it's the psychological aspect of me knowing I just replaced all the primary moving parts of this Avid CNC. But it seems to move much more quietly. It's no longer moaning and groaning during the first movements of the day. It's just, I don't know, seems like a happy CNC. Let's make sure it moves right.
Tell me when to stop.
Sounds good, moves good, you can stop. So, I have to admit, when I realized I had to tear into my Avid CNC, I was a little nervous. I mean, even though the whole reason I went with Avid in the first place is because I knew if I built the CNC from the ground up, I could handle any repair that was required along the way. The fact that I had not taken a wrench to any part of this machine for 4 years had me second guessing myself. But as always, Avid made it super simple and, dare I say, nearly impossible to mess up. Also, their customer support was fantastic as always. They sent me links to everything I needed to buy, and they even sent me links to each part of the assembly manual I would have to reference. All in all, I'd say replacing all 3 gear sets and belts took approximately 3 hours. And that was me taking my sweet time. So, whether you're forced to do maintenance on your Avid CNC like I was, or if you are wise and are being a little more proactive with your routine maintenance, have no fear. You can knock it all out over a couple of cups of coffee and be up and running in no time. Quick comments on price. I have the NEMA 34 motors on my CNC, and I had the old gear sets. So I had to pay to upgrade from the Legacy to the 2.0. So the Pro CNC machine spare parts bundle with the upgrade and NEMA 34 compatibility was $327.75. I added 2 NEMA 34 drive belts, that was $41. They added $30.62 for shipping. Believe that means my total was $399.37. Moment of truth. Remember the flashing green box? You can touch that with your finger.
The enable.
Yep. Good job. So now we're enabled. If it's enabled, what do you think that means? It could do what at any time? Move. So this is where we're very careful. We never put our fingers around any moving parts anymore, right?
No.
Because safety is
Number 1.
number 1. There you go.
Fun is number 2.
Ready, 1, 2, 1, super speed, go! Stop! Did you know it would go that fast? That's awesome.
If you need to rewind, go this way, and if you need to fast forward, go that way. And if you need to pause, press right in the middle.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed our video today. You say something.
We hope you enjoyed our video.
As always, if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe, and I'll see y'all soon.